A question that I often get in the English classroom is, how do I break down a scene from a film? All it really requires is two things, which is putting it simply, but it takes time to develop and practice. The first thing is a keen eye to observe. Notice the things in front of you. The second thing is having a certain mindset, and that mindset is that the director is always trying to show me something. The director is always trying to show me something. The reason why I think that is because if the director wasn't trying to show me something, then the director wouldn't use certain camera angles. The director wouldn't use certain camera shots. The director wouldn't give certain pieces of advice to actors about acting. Right? The director wouldn't give input in terms of music and soundtrack to be included in the scene unless they wanted us to feel something or see something or notice something. So the one thing that you need more than anything else is to develop this mindset that the director is always going to show us or trying to show us something. Now, this video is not going to give you 5 steps on how to break down a scene. Instead, I'm going to be playing something from the film Invictus, directed by Clint Eastwood, and I'm going to be commentating over it, just to give you an idea of what goes through my head when I try to understand a scene, and hopefully you can pick up some tips and some advice that is going to be helpful for you. Okay, so let's begin. Alright, you know what? In fact, I'm going to watch a little bit before this scene. And the reason is because what comes before and sometimes what comes after gives us context to understand this scene a little better. Okay. Now, if you're familiar with this scene from Invictus, you'll know that this is Mandela's first day in his presidency, and he walks into his office, and his office workers, especially the white ones, well, only the white ones, are starting to pack up and are preparing to leave because they think that he's going to fire them on the basis of who they worked for before and on the basis of the color of their skin. So what he's actually dealing with in the first day of his presidency are fears, anxieties, and racial tensions. Now, we're just going to watch a little bit before to give us a bit of context. Alright, so this scene gives us a bit of context. This shows us, through Francois Pienaar's father, a man in the general public of South Africa, not someone who's really that well known. He doesn't even get a name in this film, so he kind of represents the general fears and anxieties of the white population of South Africa. He thinks that Mandela's going to come in, make sweeping changes, and basically take all their jobs and kick all the whiteys out of the country. So we see that what's about to happen in the next scene is not just isolated to the government office or workplace that Mandela works in. It's actually an attitude that is spread throughout South Africa. So it gives us a bit of context to understand this a bit more. What we're about to see is how Mandela actually deals with this attitude. Alright, here we go. Okay, I've noticed something already. The first shot that we have is of Mandela walking through the door with his 2 bodyguards. We see him, right? It's something like a medium shot of him. We can see him from the legs up. We can see him walking in. Then the camera shot turns. Now we're seeing a white lady carrying her stuff packing up. So what's actually happened here? Well, the director is showing us Mandela, and then the director is showing us what Mandela is seeing. And you can see him looking around here. You can see what he notices. He notices his portrait. Now, what have we just observed here? I reckon what we've just seen is that Mandela is actually a pretty observant person. He notices things going on around him. And the reason why I think that is because we have a shot of him walking through the door, but then the camera angle changes, the camera shot changes so that we see things from his point of view. To his portrait on the wall, to what he notices his white government workers doing. Now, he's engaging with everything around him. He doesn't just walk through and go straight to his office. He says good morning to people. He looks them in the eye. He engages with his environment around him. He's not just single-mindedly going to his office. He's in the present with everyone there. Little compliment. Nice thing to say. Okay, here we go again. He walks into his office. And this shot, again, we see him looking around. What is he looking at? He's looking at his desk, he's looking at his office. So what might he be thinking? Now, this is probably up for interpretation, because we might not have enough information. But here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that he is noticing and suddenly realizing, wow, I am the president. This is my office. This is like the seat of power in South Africa. So he's had that little realization. Now, what's he about to do as president? The first act of him being president. Alright, here he goes again. Okay, so what did we just watch? We watched two white male government workers, and one of them says he wants the satisfaction of firing us himself. So, what do we see here? We see the same fears reflected in these two that Francois Pina's dad has in the previous scene. Alright, so what have we just noticed then? It says Goeiemorgen, which is Afrikaans for good morning. And again, he engages with the people around him. He doesn't just walk straight up to the podium. He doesn't walk straight up to the stage. He says, good morning, how are you? It's good to see you. Alright, so what's going on here? You can see stern faces. They're expecting something bad to happen. Stern face, stern face. Stern face. Stern face, stern face. Really blunt message. Stern face, stern face. And here's where it takes a turn. Now, what's the point of this shot? it's closer than the previous ones showing people's facial expressions. So the director obviously wants us to see how people are reacting. He wants us to have a look at people's facial expressions, which tell us a lot about what's going on in their heads. Back to the same shot. Look at it. Little nod, acknowledging. Kind of a sigh of relief. Okay, now this one is super important. The reason why I think that is because look at this guy. The guy before who was expressing all that fear, look at him. He's fully attentive, fully engaged in what Mandela is saying. He's believing him. A little smile, a little nod. Smiles. Now look at this shot. Again, the same shot repeated, except this time look at the facial expressions. Smiles, and the tension has notably lifted from the room. Okay, so what have we been looking at here? Again, the principle, the mindset is just think that the director is trying to show you something, right? And how has he done that? He's done that through different shots. He's trying to show us not just how Mandela leads, but he also wants us to see the effect of his leadership, the effect of what he says on people. He also wants us to see something about Mandela himself. He wants us to notice that Mandela is observant. He notices things that are going on around him. He engages with ordinary things, with ordinary people. And he responds to that as well. He doesn't just ignore it, he responds to it. He notices that people are packing up and he addresses the fears that they have. So what this particular scene shows us, and what the previous scene helped us to understand, is that Mandela is a president who wants to deal with the fears and anxieties that people have. He's concerned about what they're concerned about. And one of the reasons why he does that is because he knows in order for them to rebuild South Africa to be a united nation, they need to be able to address these fears and anxieties. He needs to be able to make people feel relaxed, respected, and valued as well. And he does that incredibly well in this scene. So just in a couple of minutes, a lot of different ideas about Mandela and what he does and how he does it and the effectiveness of it is shown.